we are meant to be interdependent and not codependent. There's a new system happening. It's already getting birthed. The question is, are we going to stick with what we know doesn't work out of fear and compliance? Or are we going to be brave and creative and create amongst the chaos? So I think that now that we're in this particular kind of adversity in the world, it is a beautiful time to create, be the change that they want to see in the world. You can't say that you want something that you've never seen before and think that whatever you've been doing is going to get you there.
But what does leadership mean to you personally right now?
I think for me, it means.
Hello there. Welcome back to another episode of Conversations Beyond the Brand. I am your host, Dr. Tashana Thompson, and I'm really excited for today's episode. Today's guest is someone who embodies leadership, wisdom, and a commitment to community at every level. When we think about success, we often talk about personal drive, but there's another layer that is just as powerful, if not more so, and that is collectivism. And this is the belief that we rise higher when we rise together. Joining me today is Sharifa Rowe, founder of S. Rowe Consulting. Sharifa is a strategic consultant, speaker, coach, wife, mother, and a woman who is living proof that you can build a brand and a thriving business and still honor your family, your community, and your values. Today, we're talking about the work that she does and the power of collective leadership and collectivism, how she's balancing entrepreneurship and life, and the brand that she's building along the way. I can't wait. Jump inside. At Conversations Beyond the Brand, we're all about telling the whole story, not just the shiny parts. And Sharifa's journey reminds us that success isn't just about what you built for yourself, but what you build and pour back into others. Her commitment to collectivism, choosing to lift others as she climbs, and is the kind of leadership that the world needs, especially now. And trust me, you're about to lead this conversation so full. Welcome, 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 Sharifa. I'm so excited to have you on. Sharifa and I met at an event last summer, and we are quickly becoming sister friends. I mean, we're already there. And I'm just so excited to have you and to share the work that you're doing. You might not know it, but you taught me so much in this short time about collectivism and just really kind of reframed the way that I look at things. So I know that our audience is going to leave with a real treat in having you here. So for the people in the back, please introduce yourself.
Well, hello. Thank you so much for having me on Conversations Beyond the Brand. Dr. Thompson, who I just learned today is a doctor, so humble. And you were really a breath of fresh air when I met you last summer. Sometimes I can be a golden retriever, just so eager to meet and connect with people. And that can be met in a myriad of ways. But you were so open and warm and authentic. And I just thought, I want to meet her. I want to be her friend. I want to know all she's doing. And so it's just been a beautiful exploration of relationship. You're in Georgia. I'm in Arizona, but I still feel like we are close. I started my work. I started my company in 2017, but I started my work before that. I had been a teacher. I had been an administrator in the education system. I had worked for nonprofit. I had worked for for-profit. I worked for government. And I started to notice that all of the systems were organized the same. And so in 2014, 2015, I really got on this journey of trying to understand systems and how they function and how to do it differently, because I really do have a firm belief that it's all been made up. And we could do something different that is useful to everyone, not just to BIPOC folk or Black Indigenous folk, but to every human being on earth. And that's really my heart's desire. And so I started my consulting company, S. Rowe Consulting, in 2017. And I had nothing. I didn't even have a bank account because I wasn't making no money. So there wasn't no reason. So I started the work really doing it for free because I believed in it so much. And people start saying, hey, do you know you could make money doing this, that you could be a consultant. And so I started my company in 2017 and really felt like, okay, I want to do it differently. I saw the consultant sector being very, I say like hoarding work, not really being expansive, not having an abundance mindset. And so I said, I don't want to start that way. So I decided to be a solopreneur and really subcontract with other people. And year after year, I was growing and building. And that idea of doing consulting differently, realizing that there's enough for everyone, really began my journey. Since then has become not only SRO consulting and helping systems thrive and be different and figure out how to practice not only collective leadership, but collective economics. But also we've launched Lotus Liberation, which is all about teaching people how to build communities that can thrive together. Sometimes there can be a lot of infighting. We all think we're going to be the number one person to change the world. And while we all have a part in that, I believe that we are stronger together. You know, they say, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. And so that's what Lotus Liberation is all about. And I've also launched into my own podcast, the Get Free Podcast, where we talk about getting free. I think that everyone talks about freedom, but we haven't always talked about the different layers of freedom or our freedom journey that allows us to think the way that we think around our own personal freedom. And so I launched that last year as well. Started with my mother and my grandmother. It was so great to hear their stories, what they have accomplished, what they endured, their own thinking. And it really was some healing for myself, listening to my mother's story, who had me at 14. For a long time, I had a lot of shame around that, and just hearing her journey helped me with that. So yeah, SRO Consulting, Lotus Liberation, the Get Free Podcast has all been a piece of me really figuring out my own way that I want to grow old. I always talk about this is my year of, what they call it, the year of Jubilee. Because I'll be 50 in November. I'll be the big 50. And I feel very fortunate because I was raised in a multi-generational family. So I was in the house with my great-grandmother, my grandmother, and my mother all at the same time. And what that allowed me to do is to really appreciate the journey to aging. And my great-grandmother gave me that. I've been looking forward to being 50 since I was 9. So you won't hear me say 50 is the new nothing. I don't want it to be the new 20, the new 30. I want it to be what it is, where I am thriving and building authentic and beautiful relationships and creating the life of my dreams, which I think everyone should have. And so that's my work. And that's kind of how I started.
You talk a lot about collectivism and have really shaped how I think about it, right? In your own words, what is collectivism really, and why is it so critical today?
So I feel like that is a really big question. And so I think I have to start with my reading and learning about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Are you familiar with Maslow's hierarchy?
I am. Get into it.
And so when I read the article connected to Maslow's hierarchy of needs and him using Blackfoot Nation as his inspiration for that work, and actually flipped the pyramid of putting your basic needs first and your self-actualization far away from you. And I can even remember as early as like 2014, I used to be like, I want to be self-actualized. I used to say that all the time.
Wow.
And I feel like Source, Spirit, God, however you look at it, said, "Lo, let me tell you the truth." And that article came past me, and I read it and said, oh, self-actualization is the first tier. You are self-actualized because you are born, because you have breath in your body, because you are here, you are already self-actualized. And then the getting to know yourself, your preference, what you care about, those are the things that give you esteem. And then when two people come together in that awareness, they create belonging together, they create safety together, and then they share the resources, because the resources grow out the ground. It's a gift from source, from the earth, whether it's, what we build our homes with, what we eat, what we heal our bodies with. And it was that awareness that it was like, oh, we are meant to be interdependent and not codependent. And so it took me to like, oh, our relationship with nature has been distorted. Our relationship within ourselves have been distorted, and our relationship between each other has been distorted. And really, for me, collectivism just means that we are not harming each other, that we're growing in our own self-awareness, and also creating belonging, creating safety, and sharing resources together. And this is not new. No matter if you look historically at Black Wall Street, what they don't say, while there was a Black Wall Street in Oklahoma, and a lot of people know that history, there was a Black Wall Street wherever there was Black people. And in every major city, they built wealth together, they shared resources, and a lot of those communities were bombed and lakes were put on top of them, or places like Central Park in New York, parks was put on top of them. And we kind of went to this individualism idea where everyone pulls themselves up by their bootstraps. They figure it out alone. And we've essentially been emulating the wealthy.
Yes.
And also wagging our finger at the wealthy. Why are you like this? Why are you doing this? And yet still ourselves doing it. And I think that it is that historical trauma of what happens, right? Like, stay under the radar, don't do brave things. But I think we're at a time where our ancestors is speaking to us again and teaching us that old lesson of interdependence, and how do we create a world that is thriving and useful and allow people to have their own liberation. And I've been using this liberation equation that I made up from listening to other people. And so it's not going to tell you what collectivism, but I think this liberation equation is autonomy, it is dignity, and it's also connection.
Yeah.
And so you need autonomy because each person's freedom journey or collectivism might look very different. And so they should have the autonomy to create that. So collectivism includes autonomy, but you should also have dignity, the dignity in how you want to live in the world, the dignity of how you get resources, the dignity of how you show up as yourself or want to curate yourself, or how you want to show up in the world. But it also requires connection.
Yeah.
And so that balance of connection says, hey, I want you to have liberation, but can that liberation not harm me? Hey, I want you to be able to live an authentic life, but can that authentic life you live not be riddled with hatred or riddled with ways that it will unalive me or take me out of this world, right? Can we figure out a way where we both can have that? And so ultimately, I believe collectivism is a form of liberation. I think that it is an opportunity to have wealth. I think it's an opportunity to have health. I think it's an opportunity to curate a life that is beautiful, depending on how you want that life to look. I don't think that, it has to look the same for every single person, that collectivism in of itself is, now you do exactly what I do. Now you like exactly what I like. But it is that interdependence of, hey, you like doing this? I kind of like doing this too, but I like doing it this way. Can I plant my seeds next to your tree? Can we also have a little bit, can birds come? Can other animals come? Can somebody be the water? Can somebody be the air that the breeze comes through? And it's that interdependence is really what I see collectivism being.
I love that. And you and I've had several conversations about this. And why do you believe, it's always been important, but why is it even more critical in the space we find ourselves in right now?
I think it's important because, the system that we've created or have been participating in has been harmful. It has not worked for Black people. It hasn't worked for Indigenous people. It hasn't worked for women. It hasn't worked. And honestly, I don't think it's worked for males either, or for people who identify as white. I think that is some of the fear of, well, what about what's going to happen to me? And really, because we haven't cultivated a life of interdependence, we don't even know how rich and wonderful it could be. I go on my walks in the morning, to calm my nervous system. And I just always just so amazed of nature just existing and coexisting with each other and supporting each other. And I think that because we have this fear of not only ourselves and nature, because I do believe nature was colonized first before the people. If you go back and read the history of how nature was talked about, that is dangerous, that is out of control. I don't think there's a group of people that haven't been talked about this way, whether we're talking about the rural communities or Appalachia, when we're talking about people who identify as white, or Black communities or indigenous communities when that land was being taken over. And so there really is a thread of fear and a thread of harm and a thread of control that we all share that we really haven't unpacked. But I believe that the balm, the healing, is in us not only becoming more true to our stories and understanding each other's stories, but I also think that that's where a lot of our healing and new creation of how we could be instead. And so right now we know that we could be a different way. We see other places, we see how other countries, Finland, Germany, we see these places that function differently. And we have to ask ourselves the question, why are we functioning still the same when it is killing us, when it's not giving us the wealth? And shout out to my friend Erica. She spells it Wellthy. Wealth. How can we cultivate that for ourselves? And I believe that we can if we practice this interdependence and collectivism. But first, we have to start having the conversations and be willing to be vulnerable with each other in this way. And we have been taught to not be vulnerable, not show up in our authenticity, show up in a scarcity mindset of resources. Okay, where's my house and where's my car and where's my clothes?
And if you have that, then I can't have this.
Yeah, if you get what you need, then I can't get what I need or want or fill in the blank. And so I think that is why it's really important. There's a new system happening. It's already getting birthed. The question is, are we going to stick with what we know doesn't work out of fear and compliance? Mm-hmm. Or are we going to be brave and creative and create amongst the chaos? And I choose to create. I think that's and you choose to create. That's why we're here with Conversations Beyond the Brand. That is going to be important because people are looking to turn to something else. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that I feel like, most people who have had adversity, we've been creative in that adversity. Now, we've always been creative in adversity, human beings in general.
For sure.
And so I think that now that we're in this particular kind of adversity in the world, it is a beautiful time to create. And I think that's what I want to encourage every person to do. I think a lot of times we think systems is like this one blanket idea that's going to like cover everyone. And actually, I think it's more like budding flowers that everyone has their pod and thing that they create and it connects and it creates this kind of beautiful tapestry. And so we don't have to worry about the creation for everyone. We just have to create for ourselves and share and be open to other people's creation and them sharing it as long as it's not harmful to each other. And so I think that's why it's really important for us to be thinking this way at this time.
I love that. So I know I've asked you this question before, but have you always been this way? Have you always been this courageous, this brave, and this focus on the collective? Where does that come from?
I think that I've grown into it.
Okay.
I think I've grown into it. I think in my 20s, I probably was closer to traditional. Oh, I'm supposed to cook, clean. I'm supposed to, follow my partner blindly. I'm supposed to do those things. And then I became a mom and I have three, a bonus child and two biological. And so 3 daughters. And I think that for sure changed me, watching them show up in the world. I have both Gen Z and Gen Alpha in my house, and that is they've grown up in a new place. You have a Gen Alpha in your house,
I
so
do.
it is an awakening. I think also looking at how we've talked about wealth and capitalism made me think differently. Like, wait a minute, if only a little bit only 1% has the resources, what really happens to the rest of us? And do I want to be a part of that 1%? Is that really my goal? Do I really care about that? And the answer is I don't. But on top of that, I think going back in history and really studying how people who were coming out of Jim Crow laws and chattel slavery were millionaires.
Yes.
Year to 3 to 5, 10 years out of slavery were millionaires.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
And it's like,
and had
so
land.
And they were starting from nothing.
It couldn't even read. Like, many of them, in my own family, I've learned recently, my great-great-grandmother, 30 acres of land, couldn't read. So it's so interesting and so powerful, like how we find ourselves in different places and different spaces, and knowing what's in us and the ability that we have to create, as you said, something different.
And so I think that awareness was like, oh, wait a minute, these people have done this. This is not new. People have done it in circumstances that looked or seemed impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And we definitely have more access, more wealth, more knowledge than a lot of our ancestors were starting with.
For sure.
And so it just made me start thinking. I was thinking about this like in the 2010s, the 2008s. But the Sagittarius that I am, I'm always like, oh, we should do this thing. And everybody's like, no, that thing, nobody need that. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna just keep sitting on it and doing my own thing. And then before you know it, people are like, oh, remember that thing you were talking?
We're ready now.
We should be doing that thing. I feel like oftentimes it only happens in crisis. And so I would love for us to get away from being able to be brave and explore and try new things only when we're in a crisis. But I'll take it. That's why I feel very thankful that we are going through what we're going through. Because otherwise, I don't think that we would have had the pressure to do it differently.
This is so true.
And it's necessary to do it differently. And so I'm appreciative of this time. I feel like this is like a new renaissance.
In many ways it is. And something that you told me a while ago, look, I remember every conversation, there's always wonderful nuggets of wisdom, is that it takes all of us, right? It really takes all of us, all races, all creeds, male, female, the whole gamut, to really create this space again.
Yeah.
I like how that's coming up again and again as a theme. But I want to shift and talk a bit about your work and how you help leaders move beyond just talking about values to actually living them and giving them a reframe of sorts. Not a reframe of sorts, a total reframe.
Yeah, we try. We try. I think this is one of the reasons why we decided to start Lotus Liberation, because a lot of my work in the beginning was going into institutions that are already pretty indoctrinated into the status quo, and trying to get them to implement new ideas, or what we call tests of change, within their work environment or learning environment or whatever like institution or organization we're working with. And I think what I learned is that there is a lot of pressure to keep it the same. There's a lot of and when you're dealing with people who are also trying to take care of themselves and their livelihood is connected to keeping it the same, or they've gotten used to their pecking order. They know that they're not in the 1%, but at least they get to be an upper middle class, or at least they get to be, in charge of something, and not even really being able to see like, yeah, but that oppression that's hindering the people that you think you're helping is also hindering you. And you all, and it's the invisible killer of stress, of heart disease, of thyroid conditions, of blood work not working the same. Like it's those those silent killers that a lot of times people don't even get an opportunity to unpack or try to do something about. And so what we've learned is that people have to find themselves in this work. That even though we were going into institutions and really good, well-meaning people was wanting to do something, they weren't doing it for themselves. They were doing it for someone that they wanted to help to get to their status or to what they had accomplished financially. But really, everyone has been stifled in being authentic and being able to speak their truth and being able to be self-actualized fully. And so the work that we're doing is twofold, where yes, we're working with organizations who want to and who feel like that they have the power to be able to do something different. But a lot of times we're really battling against these mental models that's been passed down to us from our grandmothers and mothers, has been passed down to us in working environments, or generationally, boomer generation, the Gen X generation. And so we get really stifled in the status quo. And so it can get really difficult to make those kind of changes, at least those big changes that will really make a system be different. And so with Lotus Liberation, we're kind of trying to think about it a little differently. Can we give people mental models and show them how to counteract those mental models within their own personal lives, within their organization, of how they work with their staff, or how they work with their board, or how they work with other leaders within the organization? And then what are teaching them how to create their own test of change so that they can get data and build the muscle.
Right. Tell me a little bit more about who you serve and what their status quo is, because I want to really call that out and like really have our listeners truly understand the type of work that you're doing.
So I've worked with philanthropy that has millions of dollars or billions of dollars that they only take 10% and, try to grant make to the community, which are, multi-million dollar organizations. I've worked with corporations that are also in the millions of dollars. I've worked with grassroots organizations that's less than $1 million. I've worked with government entities that are trying to implement something different or think about things differently, whether you're talking about transportation or hiring. So it's as far as the who has been very expansive, whether it's, private sector or civic engagement, civic sector or nonprofit, but the actual foundation is the same. Because systems are organized the same, they normally have your board, you have your CEOs or your executives, you have your middle management and your departments and directors, and then you have your mid management and your managers, and then you have your foundational folks, which might be supporting staff. And normally that doesn't go all the way through the organization. And normally the people that are most aware and most ready are the people closest to it. So normally with the least ability to speak on it is seeing it so clearly. But because they don't have the title, or because they're not making a certain dollar amount, we think that their wisdom is not useful, which is not truthful. And so that's kind of who I'm working with. And then how I try to work is identify the people that's most impacted by the decision making. A lot of times we're making decisions around things that don't impact us. And then the people who it does impact, we don't even ask them, or even
they're not even stakeholders.
And then when they leave, we all act shocked.
Yep.
What, that so-and-so was such a good, why? I've been in organizations where you're kind of handcuffed. I mean, I started my consulting company because I was working for a major nonprofit that is a global nonprofit in the US. And my hands were just tied over and over. They will always say the right things,
Mhm.
but then, so it kind of goes mental model and then like the how you do things, your
Right.
policy, practices, culture, and then you'll get to the systemic. Okay, what can we change to make sure that it's legal or that no matter who leaves the organization, it won't change? Normally, we don't get to that point. We get to a few people who might have their personal mental models change, but it doesn't get to the practice of the organization. Or they might try to do a policy, but they haven't really identified all the stakeholders so that it could be really useful for everyone. Um, and so that's kind of what I come up against. But
Yeah.
now I just feel like I don't know if that is as useful as I thought. I feel
Mhm.
like I'm even in a crossroads in my own work of the who I work with and the why and how do I get to that. I for a test of change, I've been really curious about Target
Mhm.
and watching that. Them reaching out to uh, Al Sharpton. And someone told me, they were like, I work closely with Al Sharpton. He's not there without a check. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. No one had ever put it that plainly to me before. And so I think a lot of the work that we try to do gets compromised because we're not connected to community. We're not connected to the people most impacted. And we
Yeah.
kind of get this, I don't know, this grandeur status that makes us feel like, oh, we finally arrived, we're a leader, but we don't think about the collective leadership and how that needs to function so that we can get to the best outcome for everyone.
That's so interesting, and that really speaks to the individualism that you spoke about earlier. And I won't spend a whole lot of time on Target, but there is an influencer that I follow pretty heavily, and they were talking about how, you know, they're getting brand deal offers to do things with Target, and they're like, this really impacts me, but I can, from a real, they're not probably a millionaire, but not a multimillionaire. And they're like, no, my community, my audience is comprised of the people who are boycotting you. So for me to say, okay, you're paying me whatever, here I come, from an individualistic standpoint, yeah, let's go. But
Yeah,
from the collective standpoint, no.
no.
And how does that really impact my audience? And how does that impact the collective? Which
Yeah.
takes me into my next question, because I could talk to you about that all day and we will not. Um, but what does leadership mean to you personally right now?
Hmm. That's that's a great question. I think right now, it for me, leadership means not only being brave enough to share your piece or speak your voice, but be just as sensitive to listening and knowing who you are accountable to and
Mhm.
being clear of who you're accountable to. I think a lot of times we forget that we're accountable to the people. We're accountable to the people. We're not accountable to a building. We're not accountable to the name of an organization. We're not accountable to the policy. At the end of the day, when I transition, and I don't know what I'll become, a beautiful patch of mushrooms, or I'll be in the universe. I don't know what I'll be, stars. I don't know.
Right.
But it's going to be the people that will talk about me and remember me. It won't be any document I created, even if it is a document, it's going to be useful because the people
Make
are,
it useful.
are using it. And I think we lose that. We lose that reality that the relationship is reciprocal, and that you become a leader because the people say you are, right?
That
Like the people trust you, or the people, and so you have to have some accountability to the people, not to the dollar, not to the position or the title, but to the actual real people. And I think that's what leadership is meaning for me now, especially as I'm growing, trying to become a good ancestor and figure out what that means to me. I think for me, it means being just as eager to lead or being just as eager to follow as you are to lead.
That's good. Being just as eager to follow as you are to lead. That is super, super powerful. And the reminder that it's all about the people. Because if no one is following, what are you leading? Oh, I love that. I hope y'all are writing down these nuggets because, Sharifa comes in, is spitting fire and giving us all these nuggets of wisdom. I want to shift a little bit because I know that while you are doing such amazing things professionally, you're also a wife and a mother. And I want to hold space for talking about like, how do you balance? Like, I believe balance is an illusion, but for the sake of this conversation, we'll use the word balance. How do you balance the demands of entrepreneurship along, with your family life?
What word do we use? I don't know if we say balance. We say life work blend.
I like that.
And I'm learning a lot of lessons. I mean, I have teenagers now, and
3 of them, y'all.
3, and they're teaching me things about myself every day, things that I like and things that I don't like. And I'm learning to, I can't say, oh, I'm accountable to the people, and then I can't be accountable to the people that I'm with every day.
That.
I say, oh, I should be listening to the people most impacted, and then the power dynamics in my home. I can't listen to my children or listen to my partner. And so I feel like those are things that I'm working on. I think earlier, let's see, I turned 50 this year, but I'll be married 25 years this year too. Lord's will. And I believe that I'm learning to be more soft, really coming into my divine feminine. I think that I'm learning to slow down. Everything does not have to be a 50-yard dash. And that's a different place for me. I often say that I need to be convening other firstborn women, children, so we can talk about the pulling of being the firstborn and the relationship of your parents and grandparents, but then also trying to, forge a pathway for your children and with your partner, and also trying to make sure that you're honoring yourself and that you're not abandoning yourself. And it is quite it's quite the experience, but I'm trying to every day learn to talk more loving to myself, to expect beautiful things to happen to me, to expect to not only anticipate, but expect kindness.
Yes.
And expect soft love.
Yes.
And those things I would have to admit are new for me, because for so many years, success meant being in my masculine energy, being on the grind, being in the hustle, making it happen. And I would say in the past 3 to 5 years, I would say COVID was definitely a blessing in transitioning that and making me realize, oh, wait a minute, like, where am I trying to go again? Is that still, did I check back in with myself and say, is that really still what I want to do? Is that really still what I care about? And then giving myself the permission to bloom and blossom in all different kind of ways.
I love that.
Even in my imperfection, even in my getting it wrong or failing forward or learning lessons. I try not to say failure because I don't really believe in failing. I believe in lessons.
Mm-hmm.
I believe everything is a lesson. I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, like, hey, there's really no failures if you learned a lesson from it. It only becomes a failure if you didn't learn anything new and you didn't grow from it in some kind of way. And so I think that's where I am in this, a point of reflection, a point of giving myself kindness, a point of perfection not being the goal, in fact, leaving it
To the side.
behind.
Mhm.
Um, and choosing love and light anyway.
I love that. Mm.
Mm.
Look, that makes me feel like I've gotten a warm hug. And I want to talk to you about how you want SRO Consulting to feel to the people that encounter your brand.
I want people who encounter my brand to feel inspired to be the change that they want to see in the world, to know that the seed that they plant will be fruitful, even if they don't see anyone else doing it, that it's fruitful because you started or because you are watering and planting a seed. Um, and for people to be able to be authentic. I think authenticity, we say the word a lot,
It's become a buzzword.
but we do a lot of code switching. We do a lot of code switching, whether it's connected to professional, whether it's connected to not being able to be our authentic selves in a myriad of ways. And I want people to know, like, you in yourself is valuable alone. And
Absolutely.
whatever you
Absolutely.
add to that is going to be fruitful and is going to be useful. But more than anything, I think to be innovative, be brave enough to innovate and create.
Innovate and create.
You can't say that you want something that you've never seen before and think that whatever you've been doing is going to get you there. If I'm saying that I want something that I've never seen before, I've never seen pure harmony, I've never seen liberation in a collective way. These are new ideas.
Yes.
So with new ideas take creation and innovation, and we have to be brave enough and wise enough to do it.
Oh, that is so true. And such a new frame because, I think sometimes we become whimsical in what we think that we can draw up for the world or what we can create for ourselves even. We think that it's going to happen by osmosis and that we don't have to innovate and create. So listen, you're dropping all the bombs in the best way, okay? But before we close, I want to talk about what you would leave our listeners with in terms of one truth about leadership, community, or, building something that truly lasts. Like, what would you offer as your words of wisdom?
Ooh, one truth. I think for me, I think the one truth is that you have something that is beautiful and needed for the world if you would only be brave enough to show it and build it. I like for a long time I used to be like, oh, everyone's invented everything. Like what? Yeah, it used to be easy back in the day because you didn't have a refrigerator, so you could invent it. You didn't have, but there's still more things to invent, and they're perfectly living inside of you. And I think that the more you embrace that and able to reveal it first to yourself and then to the world, it will be useful and fruitful.
I hope y'all are eating this up like I am. It's so good. It's so good. It's such, you know, I love these types of conversations, but some people don't know what to do with it because they don't know what practical steps they can take in their own lives to take the next step. And what I've heard you say again and again is be bold, create, innovate, and link arms with someone in your community to get this work done. Like it's not one of us can do it alone.
No.
So I really appreciate you being here. And before we go, I want to have a little fun with you, if that's okay.
Oh, what are we doing? Is it a game? I love games.
It's a little lightning round.
Okay.
A lightning round. And I just want you to say the first thing that comes to mind from the two choices that I give you.
Okay.
All right. Morning person or night owl?
Morning person.
One buzzword that you wish could retire forever.
Oh, that's hard. One buzzword that I wish could retire forever.
Get rid of it. Which one would you get rid of?
Moist.
All right, gonna leave that right there. Okay. And what is your go-to coffee order?
No, I don't drink coffee. Tea.
What's your go-to tea?
I like I like chai.
You're a chai girl.
Mhm.
Love it. Any book recommendations? We read a lot here. So
Many
any
books.
book that you think every woman should read?
I don't know about every woman, but the book that I've been reading right now is called Braiding Sweetgrass. I've been trying to heal my relationship with nature. I talk about it, but it's been a journey of healing. I mean, for many years, I couldn't even look at a tree without thinking about lynchings.
My God.
Honestly, like, is that tree strong enough? Was that tree here back in the day? So I've had to really build my relationship with nature again, which is why I go on these walks and all of that. So I look, I didn't forgot the question. My ADHD didn't.
I know, me and you be together. A book that you would recommend? You said
yes, Braiding Sweetgrass. This lady is a biologist, a professor, a doctor. Talks about indigenous practices and their relationship to Earth. That was just so. I don't know. It
you know what? You need to read The Secret Life of Trees.
Oh,
my mom and my husband. I haven't read it. It's
The Secret Life of Trees. I will, because that book, it's poetry and it's short stories. I'm a short story girl because I got ADHD. I read books like I watch TV, so I'll start it, I'll put it away, I'll come back, pick it back up. Yeah. So I'm always reading 2 or 3 books at a time because I get bored or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, you said The Secret Life of Trees?
Yes.
Yes.
I'll share it with you.
Yes.
But my mom and my husband swear by it. So, and it kind of goes through the whole life cycle of trees being through generations with a particular family. You would love it. Like, hearing you talk about that, I think you would love that. Anywho, I could talk to you all day long, and I know you got to go. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your heart, your leadership.
Let me just say, before we close, I just appreciate your heart. I appreciate how you pour into other women and their businesses, how you show up authentically and transparent and try to give the best information that you can for people. Sometimes, it's really difficult to get feedback about being better, showing up for yourself better. And you just have such a gift in pouring that into people and allowing people to see that for themselves over time. That is just so gentle and loving, which you normally don't even get to say when it comes to business. But the fact that that's how you hold your business, I really feel like it's in love and light and in pouring into others and them being their best selves, and how you just are a very good example of, iron sharpens iron, and that nothing is taken from you. You can just see how much is added to you every time you're supporting others. And so you've supported me, you have poured into me, and I'm just so grateful and so glad that your work and the work that you're doing exists in the world.
Thank you so much for that. Don't make me cry. I am who I am, and this is not a profession, it's a purpose. And I thank you for seeing that. Thank you for seeing me. That really means a lot to me. But thank you for your heart and your leadership, and for always teaching. Like, you are such a great teacher. Obviously, you are a teacher. It makes sense, right? But I want you to tell the people where they can find you, how they can connect with you, all of that good stuff.
So you can find me on LinkedIn under S. Rowe Consulting or Sharifa Rowe. You can also find Lotus Liberation on LinkedIn. We're on all of the major social media platforms. You can find the podcast, the Get Free podcast. We drop the last Friday of every month. We call it the Get Free Friday, but I'm going to start, we're working on doing a every Friday drop. So having a Get Free
Okay.
Friday every Friday starting in the summer. But for right now, you can find the Get Free podcast on YouTube as well.
Love it, love it, love it. If you love this conversation, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a fellow leader who needs this message, excuse me. And don't forget to subscribe to Conversations Beyond the Brand for more stories that nourish your head and your heart. Until next time, stay rooted, stay bold, and stay in relationship. Love you all. Bye.